coming out tonight. It having reached the hour of 5:30 p.m., I'm calling the September 17th, 2025 Community Police Review Board meeting to order. Just a couple brief announcements. Before proceeding, I would like to provide the board members some guidance on how to use the technology at the dais. To speak, you will need to use the mics which are activated by pressing the talk button or push button. You will also need to wait for the chair to acknowledge the speaker before proceeding to talk. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Member Beasley Dick. Member Bryant.
Present.
Member Byrd.
Present.
Member Christensen.
Present.
Member Demrell.
Here.
Member Grant. Member Smith. Member Hahn.
Here.
Chairman Solorio.
Here. All right, up next is a declaration of conflict of interest. Do any of the board members have any conflict of interest pertaining to items listed on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to public comments in person. As noted on the agenda, public comments will be only in person. Zoom will still be available for viewing and wordly translation. Does anyone wish to speak on any item under public comment? Please note that there are no public comments for items. There are no public comments for items 5 through 8. This is for items not on the agenda, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Anyone addressing the board is asked to follow the rules of decorum, and the rules of decorum are posted at the entrance of the chambers, but I will also be going over a few of them for you tonight. Please be respectful of all presenters, board members, staff, and members of the public. Please refrain from clapping other than following a presentation. All speakers are encouraged to state name and city of residence. All questions must be directed to the chair. Please do not block the view of others by holding up signs during the board meeting. Time limits for public comments is 3 minutes, but may be limited at the discretion of the chair to manage the business of the board. Speaking over others or interrupting while others have the floor is not permitted, and cell phones should be turned off or shall be set to vibrate during meetings. And again, if there's anyone that would like to leave public comment on any items that are not on the agenda tonight, which is including the annual report and direction of the mask ordinance 4-23.02.
All right. I apologize. I didn't see that on the agenda. I thought that was only a public comment.
The mask part?
Yes.
Okay,
So
yeah,
I'll sit.
yeah. So if there's going to be any public comments in regards to the mask, we'll wait until that agenda item. Okay.
Thank you. I
Of course.
apologize.
No worries. But if there's any other comments on items not on the agenda tonight for discussion, please feel free to come up and speak.
Hi, my name's Priscilla, Modesto homeowner, concerned citizen. I want to first thank you guys, the CPRB. You guys give your time and energy and heart to this, even though the city hasn't given you tools and the power to be effective. Your dedication deserves some recognition, so I appreciate you guys. But I also need to be clear, the way this board has been structured makes it powerless, and that is by design. Chief Gillespie and the city have turned what should be a vehicle for accountability into a delay tactic, a performance to silence community voices rather than elevate them. We've seen it repeatedly. Brandon Gillespie primes both City Council and CPRB, steering conversations and outcomes by meeting with them prior to public meetings, often shaping what can even be discussed. When data is questioned, legal analysis is declared off limits, the board is left in a gray area, unable to move forward without real findings and independent judgment. What is this body left with besides rubber stamping? Even more concerning is how much sway the chief of police has over the flow of information. By meeting with both council and CPRB ahead of time, he sets the boundaries of the conversation and frames what reaches the public. I ask you directly, is our local government supposed to be guided by our police department? What are the implications when law enforcement has that much influence over what the community can know? That undermines not only CPRB, but public trust in city leadership as a whole. The irony is the community members were told to trust this board as a tool for oversight, yet the city ensures you cannot provide it. If your recommendations are not grounded in data, if you are blocked from analyzing policy, then they are not recommendations at all. They are opinions boxed in by city limits. That is not accountability, that's obstruction. I urge the city to stop treating CPRB as a symbolic body, and instead give it the independent authority and resources it needs. That includes allowing real policy analysis by independent legal counsel, not just city attorney whose loyalty is to the city and not the community. Without power, this board is little more than a performance. But the community sees through that performance, and we will continue to name it for what it is: a tactic to delay justice and silence accountability. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve?
I want to start by, you guys can hear me, right?
Yes.
I'm assuming you're just having a good time and your weird smirk is not directed at me. Anyhow, I just want to say I 100% absolutely agree with the previous speaker. Nothing personal against you guys, but it really is just a show and it's not a very good one. I recently signed up for Netflix, so I can watch Trailer Park Boys, if I want to be entertained. What we want is a real body that really does things to keep police accountable. I'm just going to go with, you're a nice guy and your face sticks that way sometimes. So it's really awkward though. Anyhow, I noticed that you guys still have these dudes sitting right here. And I do want to remind you, despite your personal ideology, despite his control over what you're allowed to do, there are indeed lots of people in this community who feel extremely uncomfortable. You probably noticed I started shaking. Feel extremely uncomfortable by allowing these violent thugs to sit where they do. You are ensuring that far fewer members of this community, okay? Not everyone is as stupid as I am. If I end up going the way of was it Ed Stark because I say too much, okay? Like, I don't know if that's going to happen, but these people have like literally publicly executed people. Why are they sitting there? Why do I have to be within 10 feet of this guy? Explain that to me. It's wrong. And I hope that you members of the board will take it to heart because you're supposed to be serving this community. Okay. The other thing I want to add that pertains to what I just said and also the previous speaker, you could very, very easily be offering the public the chance to speak during public comments via Zoom. We only started doing that because of COVID is the council's excuse. But if you put a little tiny bit of work into that, use the resources that we pay for, use the talents and the knowledge that your trained staff has, it wouldn't be hard and nobody is buying that. So I very strongly urge you to take steps to include this community. And those include not having these men. I'm sorry I couldn't accept your Facebook invitation, Brandon. I hope you'll understand that you're not my friend and I'm getting tired of being stalked by you and your boys. They shouldn't be sitting there and we should be able to share public comments from home. A lot of people in this community deal with like disabled conditions of all kinds. And some of that means some people are not courageous or stupid enough to come up here and speak truth with this violent thug sitting there smirking. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Steve. Next speaker.
Hi, Ray Ruiz, Trevor Seaver's dad. Longtime resident of Modesto for 30 years, but we recently moved to Ripon. And we're happy to be out of Modesto. I think this whole CPRB is here due to my wife, Darlene, who I think, fought endless hours to get something like this here. But after a couple of years or how long that we've been here and we've rarely missed a meeting, it just doesn't seem, kind of piggybacking on the last stuff, it just doesn't seem like a lot of stuff's happening. I mean, and maybe I hope everyone on this board is frustrated because it doesn't seem like anything gets done. I mean, in my opinion, this is not the CPRB. It's not the Community Police Review Board. It's the PRCB. It's the Police Review the Community Board, and that's how it works. So hopefully some more things can get done, but I've given you guys a couple of years and I don't think anything's happened. In honor of Trevor Seaver, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Madison Condit. I do agree with the past speakers, and before I get to what I wanted to say, I do think Zoom comments are really important. We all understand, like, we're always working, people have to work, and at 5:30, it's hard for a lot of people to get here. I'm blessed. I know a lot of people who come here are blessed to be able to be here, but making it more accessible, there's nothing wrong with that. And, at least putting the effort into having this meeting be more accessible. I think this is a good idea. I wanted to bring up an incident that I had witnessed on Friday the 12th on the corner of 11th and J, right in front of Tricetti's. I watched a MPD officer give a citation to an unhoused man who, if you spend any time downtown, you know this guy. And the citation was for what I heard being described as digging through the trash can. He told the officer told the man that the next time he was seen doing it, there would be an escalated consequence, but I couldn't make out what exactly that was. I just knew that there was going to be some type of escalation. And I don't know, not necessarily that it matters, but there was no trash thrown on the floor. This guy sadly is always in the same places, looking in the same trash cans. I've never seen him be harassed for that by a police officer. It's the first time I'd seen that. I've been working downtown for 3 years now, and I know that these things probably happen when I'm not looking, but it was just the first time that I had seen and heard a police officer give a citation for what was digging through a trash can. And I was able to look up what exactly the ordinance was. I think it was I won't say it because I don't exactly remember, but the fine was could be no more than $500 and or jail time no more than 6 months. I mean, obviously that's like a horrible thing to do to somebody who's experiencing homelessness, right? But I guess I'm curious, first of all, how the police officers in those moments calculate how much each person is going to be cited for. You're going to get cited $50, you're getting cited $200. How is that calculated? If that can go all the way up to 500. And then also, is this a citation that's being more enforced now? Is it one of those things that lies dormant and then whoever is in charge says, hey, let's look for this thing and start writing more citations for that? I don't necessarily think he would answer any of those questions, but maybe that's something that you guys can ask, because I don't know if all of these different organizations and people are working to help the homeless community, and then you have police officers giving citations for digging through trash. I don't know. That just seems like they're not helping each other. So yeah, I just want to bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys don't have to, but since it was about the police department, do you guys want to respond or anything? No? Okay, sorry. If there is any other public comments, for like right now?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead and just come up.
Thank you. Hope everyone's having a good evening. I know we've been so caught up with the matters that will come later in the agenda, misconduct, June 14th, ordinances, all that I feel like we've hardly had the chance to really talk. I've kind of missed you all. And I know I've mentioned in this chamber before that I have the privilege of teaching government and economics in this city. I truly do live my dream job, and I'm very lucky to be in such a position. And thinking about that, I actually wanted to give a little econ lesson here tonight. Unlike my students, you don't have to take notes, but you might want to. You see, I was talking with a student last semester, and during a lesson on personal finance, I had an assignment where the students were asked to balance a budget. That's a skill that every person needs in life. It's amazing how many adults go through their entire life without any budget sense, but I digress. I was working with a student, top of my class, made short work of any assignment I gave them. And this assignment asked them to balance a budget, accounting for all the things that they might need to live a good life. And this student was struggling, and I mean really having a hard time with this assignment. And I had never seen that, having been their teacher for quite a while. They said, Mr. Drobnik, there's just not enough money. I want to go to MJC next year. I need money for textbooks. I want to move out. I need money for rent. And if I move out, I don't want to be dependent on my parents. I need money for healthcare. It's so expensive. How do I afford it all? I want to spend money on things that make me happy too. I don't want to just meet my needs. I want to live. Mr. Drobnik, how do I do it all? So like any teacher, I offered to review their work and give some constructive feedback. And I thought, oh, they're probably spending too much money on their subscriptions. It's, the video games or something. But no, if anything, they were spending too little on joy. What I found was more shocking. They were spending 48% of their budget on guns. 48% of my paycheck. If I spent that on guns, they'd call me crazy. But when the city of Modesto budget, we call it the fiscal operating year budget for the city of Modesto. Imagine that. So, why do we need to spend 48% of our budget on the police? They have not earned our trust. Why should they earn our dollars? Many of our elected officials have been running victory laps saying no homicides in Modesto yet this year. When crime is down, the cops get more money. When crime is up, the cops get more money. Now, I recognize this is a recommending body, but is it not alarming that there is not more discourse in this chamber during these meetings about our embarrassingly bloated police budget? Surely 48% of our funds could be spent somewhere better. What about healthcare? What about education? What about housing? Anytime you see an unhoused person on the street, that is the fault of our misallocated funds. The money is there. The money is right there, and that needs to change. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Laura Khanna. I am a concerned community member and resident of Modesto. Sorry, wrong public out to you. But okay. So I want to thank the board for hearing out community members at these meetings. I also want to take this opportunity to make visible and dispel a certain narrative that has been floating in the public discourse, which has taken place over the last few months, both inside and outside this chamber. Specifically, the narrative that people of color and everyday people in the community who are informed of our rights and possess a baseline understanding of how power, privilege, and oppression operate in society are biased in our perspectives. The implication being that our input is therefore questionable, illegitimate, and invalid. I vehemently disagree with this assumption. I want to be very explicit and name that white men in positions of power and influence are also biased. The insinuation that white men who work with law enforcement or in law enforcement are somehow impartial, objective experts, while people of color and conscientious civilians are not, is racially biased, deeply offensive, and unequivocally false. I encourage everyone in this room to think about the ways in which we all may have, unconsciously or not, to varying degrees, accepted or perpetuated this faulty narrative. I make explicit this unconscious bias in hopes of rooting it out. Just because someone wears a badge or has fancy credentials and gets their opinion legitimized in the newspaper does not mean their point of view is neutral. I reject the notion that being biased is reserved for Black and brown people. I reject the notion that the police are objective participants in this process. I reject the notion of neutrality when it is wielded as a weapon to diminish the legitimate lived realities and experiential knowledge of everyday people who bear the brunt of oppressive policies written by the powerful, moneyed, and privileged. Every single person, by virtue of being uniquely human, is biased. The weaponization of the concept of bias needs to stop immediately, especially from those who benefit from several centuries worth of institutional and systemic bias. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other further public comments on items not pertaining to what's on the agenda?
Good evening. My name is Efren, and I'm a member of CV BIPOC. I'm one of the organizers who put on the June 14th Ice Out of the Central Valley protest. And I'm here to urge the board to recommend to City Council that the anti-masking provision to municipal code.
I'm sorry.
wait for-
So for that comment, I feel like it will coincide better with the agenda item that we have later on tonight, on the discussion about the ordinance. So if you don't mind waiting to
sure.
give that comment, but if you have any other comment about anything else, please feel free to continue.
That's okay. I'll go wait for the other.
Okay, thank you so much. Sorry about that.
Yo, what's up, CPRB and Modesto residents? So look, I know I can't talk about what's on the agenda tonight, so I'm just gonna talk a little bit about American history. Let's roll it back. 1940s, LA, the Zoot Suit riots. Dudes from the Navy beat up on Mexican kids in sharp outfits, and the cops were like, yeah, those pants are definitely the real crime here. So they arrested the Mexican kids. Like, bro, imagine getting cuffed because your drip game had too much Riz. 1960s, civil rights marches, peaceful protests, people just walk in and cops go, unlawful assembly, you're too rich and melanin to be in a straight line, homie. Boom, straight to jail. 1970s, loitering laws, AKA, if you're brown, poor, or young, congrats, you're loitering. But Karen standing outside the country club for 3 hours with a Chardonnay, totally chill, no biggie. 1990s, 2000s, New York stop and frisk DLC. 9 out of 10 stops were black people or Latinos. Basically legalized vibe checks. And then the judge was like, yeah, this is racial profiling. Stop it. Bad cops, no donuts for you. Curfews, oh man, supposed to protect the kids. But somehow only the black and Latino kids got stopped. Meanwhile, suburban white teens are shotgunning natty lights at midnight and cops are like, boys will be boys. Masks, don't get me started. The OG anti-mask laws were made to stop the Triple K, but who actually got hit with them later? My black and brown homies. Talk about cringe. That ain't it, chief. This is why vague laws are the cops' favorite weapon besides a Glock. It lets them cheat and exploit the game until the new patch notes drop. So, yo, shout out time. Let me give props and mad respect to written history, especially Wikipedia, for giving us endless case studies of the same ish. And hey, I'm not talking about what's on the agenda tonight, nope. But I'll just say, history doesn't repeat, it rhymes. And right now, Modesto's dropping the same verses we've all heard before. And trust me, this track is a massive L. So I'm gonna hit the dislike button and unsubscribe.
Thank you. Do you have anyone else?
Hello, good evening, committee. Just a couple of things. I just want to emphasize stuff that has already been said by other community members. I think this committee really needs better independent oversight and more actual teeth in holding our MPD accountable for their actions. The stakes are quite high. We're talking about people who have lost their lives at the hand of MPD members. And these people have not yet, these culprits have not yet faced real justice from our legal system. For example, at the June 14th protest, the ICE Out protest, there is video evidence of officers pulling up on people with unmarked vehicles and weapons and taking them gazpacho style to jail without giving any reason. There was no conversation. And it seems, I've also seen several times officers harassing unhoused people and arresting them unfairly. That is not uncommon and not no knowledge. And there seems to be a lot of a benefit of the doubt for officers and scrutiny of community members for their intentions. When we are just speaking about the things that we are observing, our agenda is making sure that we are safe and our community members are safe. And the MPD, I can't speak to their agenda, but it has been pointed out they get a lot of funding. So perhaps they might be a bit more biased when they have more money and power to lose. I also want to add that I think Zoom comments online would be a good idea. It makes it more accessible for our disabled community members who perhaps can't make it to the meetings, for people who are just getting off of work or who don't have transportation. I think accessibility is really important in making sure every community member is heard at these meetings. Also, perhaps more investment in a better publicity for these meetings so more people know about them. I don't think most people in Modesto know we even have a committee police review board. Also, the website is kind of hard to navigate and it's hard to find the agenda. So perhaps a better, more accessible website would be great as well. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I've heard the comment about the Zoom a few times tonight, so I just wanted to say what I believe is true. So John, if you can chime in real quick and tell me if I'm right or wrong, but I believe the Zoom public comment stuff that comes down from the city. So council voted on that and they took away the public comments over Zoom, and that goes across the board for every board that's open like this. So then in order for it to be reestablished to our board, I believe the city has to do that, but we can definitely talk about any special requests to allow our board to do it. But the original thing was broad across the board for all boards from the city. That's my understanding. Did you?
Are you guys allowed by the city and by MPD and by MPOA to give feedback on that? Because it does very directly affect your operation.
Yeah, I think that is something that we can talk about in like our next annual report meeting, where we can say like, this is something we need to, bring up. I appreciate it. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to speak? Thank you.
All right, good evening. I apologize, I don't have anything super prepared between school, work, family obligations, and just trying to have a life, so bear with me. I am a student at Stan State. I'm a history major, focused on a minor in political science. I'm, not to toot my own horn, kind of disgustingly educated with history, Marxist thinking, capitalist thinking, democracy, and all that stuff. So just to say, I heard earlier today that the Modesto City budget goes nearly 50% to the policing, which is honestly insane to me. To quote somebody who's probably not well liked by a lot of people here, Marx, he says, your material conditions determine your reality. And hearing that 50% of the budget of Modesto, the material conditions are going to policing, that tells me that the city values more enforcing and keeping the people down as opposed to actually lifting people up. The fact that it goes to things such as new cars, military hardware, which for the record, I don't think most civilians should have, but it's also restricted by them that we can't have it, tells me a lot. The fact that material conditions such as yourself, like the Zoom thing, doesn't go to you guys to get fixed is kind of crazy. So it tells me that this city values restricting free and fair access to what the city board should be doing, which is allocating resources to the public and serving the public. Another thing, the fact that the history and system of policing in the United States was founded on slave catching and it's never really been reformed, highlights the history of racism in the United States and what the policing in the United States values is more disenfranchising not only people of color, but the average citizen as a whole is very telling. The fact that they also don't want to be reviewed or reformed is also very telling. When no other recourse in reform is allocated, it leaves no other option by the public. So I think the very minimum, if the police wants to keep existing in terms of a system institution, that it needs to be defunded at the very least. I appreciate what you guys do. You guys, you know, listen and you listen to what the public wants, but ultimately, you guys seem to be a system that is just controlled opposition. That you're basically just a figurehead for public critiques that ultimately goes nowhere because you are ultimately given no power to do anything. And especially if the city council just listens to you guys or throws us to you guys, nothing really seems to change. And history tells me, as a history major who has studied history not only in the US but across the world, that doesn't really bode well, especially with what's going on in the United States as a whole. It's not very good. So thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. All right, are there any other public comments that are not pertain to what's on the agenda tonight? Okay, seeing none, we will move on. On to consent item. Consider approving the minutes from the Community Police Review Board meeting on August 20th, 2025.
Move to approve.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Moving on to new business. Final presentation from the CPRB annual report for the term January 2024 through December 2024 discussion. We'll be having a presentation of that annual report and going over any questions, if there's any questions from the board, and then move on to public comments. So, are we putting it up there or are we just kind of, okay, yeah. Nancy, if you want to give a quick update on just those two quick changes that were made?
Discussed this pretty fully last meeting. And there were a couple of changes that were pretty minor that we incorporated. We added the portion about the complaints, no complaints, and just basically there were no public complaints presented to the board over the course of the year, and track the language from the bylaws or the statute that indicates that any public comments are referred to the city manager and then referred to MPD. There was a change, actually it was from the time before, about the officer interviews after deadly force. And we tried to meet the concern of board member Bryant about the de-escalation requirements. We did not want, our suggestion was not that the Modesto Police Department list all of the possible de-escalation methods, but just that the department should recommend, not recommend, but the department should require by using shall language instead of should language. And that's in the recommendations. We also made a small change in how the recommendations were separated. There was a 5A and a 5B, and we separated those out. And now nothing's numbered, so that's hard to but anyways, each recommendation was
Its own.
provided separately. I don't think that there was really any other changes. We discussed a brief change this morning. The biographical sketch, this afternoon, Simi and I, for Board Member Hahn, indicated he was chairperson, which he is no longer. So that'll be corrected and that'll just be changed to member. So I don't know if anybody on the board, given the fairly lengthy discussion we had last time, has anything they want to add, subtract, question.
I think I'm good with the way the report looks now. But if there's any other board members that have questions, please feel free to speak up. But at this time, I think we'll just go ahead and open it up to the public and then bring it back to the board for any final discussion. So if there's anyone in the public that has reviewed this annual report that we have out here tonight, and you have any questions or comments in regards to the annual report, please step up. You have 3 minutes, just like any other public comment, and it's pertaining to the annual report. Okay, thank you.
I'll keep this one brief. I do like seeing the language in here of the monthly critical incident updates. I know that's something that was asked for, and I'm glad to see it in here. So thank you all for recognizing some of the feedback that was rendered there. And then I noticed that there's still nothing in here about the potential of a youth rep next time seats come up. I really think y'all need to get someone like under the age of 18 on here. Here, I know I've stressed that before. I know several of y'all said you liked the idea, and I noticed it wasn't here. We talked about it a little bit. We have youth reps for other arms of our city, and I think that if we really have the goal of reducing youth arrests, particularly Latino arrests, I can talk about how I'm a high school teacher all I want. I don't speak for those kids any more than you do. Getting someone who actually knows that life and lives that role in this community, I think would make a lot of sense. And that's maybe hard to do when people don't know about the CPRB, which is why I'm glad to see that y'all are asking for an operating budget for publicity. I would extend that and say that I think y'all need a budget for more than just publicity, but I think y'all should be able to call for independent investigations beyond just, hey, can we get OIR to see how conduct was handled? Because sometimes I think that those critical incidents require a little bit more than folks investigating themselves. But I think my biggest concern there is that youth rep piece, because we've talked about it. And that's one that I think really could have made this report and didn't. That's one that I think was, pretty common sense and could have been done very easily. So it's a little disheartening to see that's not there at this time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Briefly respond.
Yeah,
Please.
yeah.
I think that's a very good idea. Unfortunately, and I know this seems very technical, that was discussed this year. And so if I were involved in or ultimately approving recommendations, I would include that for our 25 report. I know that's not very satisfactory, but I think it's a very good idea.
That is elucidating. Thank you. Anyone want to go on the record right now and say they'd support it?
I would say our plan for the next meeting is to go over topics for our calendar year, to finish off the year and to start next year. But if we are to come back in the next meeting, put it on the calendar for a topic, have the discussion, and then that gives us more input that we can make it a formal recommendation on next year's annual report.
That's helpful. To that end, I would hope that we could maybe have listening sessions in the community for those kinds of things beyond just these meetings. I know we had a much bigger turnout when we were at the King Kennedy Center. So I hope that's an ongoing conversation, not something that just is isolated to next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Steve?
I would just like to say that I absolutely love the previous speaker's idea that he's suggesting of having some young folks in on the action. In fact, I think it's y'all are amiss if we're not doing this, because you know what? Y'all go out into the community and brainwash kids about cops. You can do like cool like car projects at the high school, right? So let them actually be involved. let them like share what their life is like without it being like cops taking their cool cars out to the campus to wash their brains, brainwash them. Okay. Um, and just to be perfectly clear, to add on to that, when you guys do implement that, this person needs to be free. This minor needs to be free from being coached, harassed, or anything being influenced by these thugs on my left. Okay? So there's no way on earth for me to know what y'all do when I'm not around, right? I know Sheriff Dirksey meets behind closed doors with far-right groups, but when it comes to Brandon, the closest thing I know is that when the president of the local chapter of the Proud Boys came in here and they all aggressively hijacked the city council meeting, Sean Kuykendall, who, by the way, did assault the mother of one of your PD's murder victims, but that's not what I'm talking about right now. He said, we have friends in MPD. I don't know how long it took me before I gave up, but I was asking Brandon for a while, at least like a year. Hey, can you answer that? Can you tell us? Can you confirm? Do you have Proud Boys on the force? So what I'm getting at is like, it's disgusting to think that they already have programs where they brainwash children, but just to bear that in mind, especially if you're bringing a minor in on the work, please keep these dogs away from their young minds.
Thank you. Is there any further public comments in regard to the annual report?
All right, like I said originally, showed up here late, so I don't fully know what we're talking about. But the first speaker is a colleague of mine, and he, like I said, I'm disgustingly educated on history. He's disgustingly educated on what's going on, so I take everything he says as word in law. I agree with everything he says. I think it's a good idea, especially if community is supposed to be community. Having community involved with oversight of what's going on in the community is a really good idea, and that's how you get everybody involved, get everybody caring, and ultimately has been proven will actually do a better job of lowering crime, helping with unhoused and poverty, and ultimately a community that cares about each other is a community that doesn't, really have any problems. So not only having community oversight, but also having community in terms of younger aged kids, high school, getting involved in this stuff and knowing how city works, local government, and government as a whole, which because a lot of high school and education as a whole is defunded and they don't really have either the time or the material conditions to do so, I think is a fabulous idea. Because I myself in my age don't really know how all of this works, and I'm in my 30s, which is very telling about the U.S. education system, which is obviously not you guys, but getting high school age kids involved in what's going on, I think is a great idea because it teaches them their material conditions and everything that's going on in their life, so they are better educated and aware of what's going on, as opposed to what they're just told and take at face value, which to some degree even I'm doing. But I have a colleague who does all this research, who is really aware of what's going on, and if he says that's what should be done, I believe it, because that's, in my opinion, how community should be run. A community should take care of itself, and communities should be involved in each other's lives and care about each other's lives, as opposed to just this hyper individualistic society that we have, where nobody cares about each other because nobody has the time to do so or the material conditions to do so. So community involved in it, getting somebody, a program involved in local high school, involved in oversight is a great idea. So everything the first speaker said should be taken
Thank you.
and going on. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right, are there any other public comments before I bring it back to the board? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board. Does anyone on the board have anything else further to add on this discussion? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the annual report as given? I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. All right, so on to the next item. It's a discussion of possible direction regarding ordinance 4-23.02. It's a presentation from the ad hoc committee, an update, and yeah, so Simi, if you don't mind, just go ahead and bring that up.
Mr. Chair, if I could just real quick. So there were presentations we initially placed out here. We provided, they didn't have all the pages, but we reprinted them and then I distributed to everybody that was in the room at the time copies of the presentation. So those are available.
Okay, yeah, if there's anyone that doesn't have the presentation and would like it, okay. But if we're all out, we do have it up on the board as well.
Immediately, yeah, they should be up tomorrow. Anybody else? Going once? Okay. We can share it, it comes out with it. All right, thank you. Back to you, Chair.
All righty, let's continue. Wendy, you want to go ahead and get started?
Sure. Thank you. Okay, well, we were charged with putting together a report, which we have. I'm going to start off, and it's on the screen, so you can follow me. This report is presented actually to the board, and it was produced by myself, Brad Hahn, Nico Rio, and Latricia Beasley Day.
Wendy, do you mind maybe bring the mic a little closer?
How's that?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Next slide. What? Next slide. Next slide. First of all, I want to give a disclaimer. This report is not intended to serve as a scientific, professional, or legal analysis. It represents the results of a layman's independent study and interpretation of constitutional and related laws. Its content should not be relied on as legal advice or an official legal opinion. So what is this briefing? It's a factual summary of materials we received, observations from recent events, and community input. What it's not is legal advice or a finding about constitutionality. It's not a formal legal analysis that comes from the city attorney. So our recommendations are a summary of different materials that we looked at. We, number one, looked at the ordinance, the original ordinance in 2019, and then we looked at the revised ordinance. We looked at civil liberties definitions, because you know you hear a lot about all these different terms, and so we just did a general overview of what civil liberties definitions are. We did a few comparisons with other cities, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And then we also took into consideration letters from the public. We attempted to put together an ad hoc sample survey, and we concluded with key findings, conclusions, and recommendations. So, Scotty, in the packet that the community has, does it include everything?
Yeah. Yeah.
It
same
includes
thing.
all of the slides that are you're about to present.
Well, there's no suspense to all of it. Next, we'll go with our interpretation of our assignment, which was to research, analyze, and inform the Community Police Review Board of our findings. Our goal is to assist the board in making a recommendation to the city manager regarding the ordinance. Now, I know that there's been maybe some misunderstandings that we're supposed to provide a recommendation to the city council. According to our bylaws, our charge is to provide recommendations to the city manager, and then the city manager takes those recommendations and moves them forward. Next slide. So the ordinance yourself, and in your package, you can have, it has a link of where you can look. It's pretty long, but you have a link of where you can look to find it and where we looked to find it. The first slide after that, we looked into civil liberties first. What does that mean? And so under that, the items that we pulled up was freedom of speech, which is protected by the First Amendment, according to the literature that we read. It covers spoken words, signs, chants, music, and symbolic acts. It includes unpopular or critical views of government. Freedom of assembly, right to gather peacefully and protest. Time, place, and manner restrictions are permitted, but restrictions must be applied content neutrally. Next slide. Freedom of association, rights to organize and join advocacy groups, protects protesters from retaliation for group membership. Next was protection against government retaliation. Government cannot punish lawful protest activity. Arrest or surveillance based on viewpoint are unlawful. Next. Another civil liberty is equal protection, the 14th Amendment. Protesters must be treated equally under the law. Targeting groups or movement is unconstitutional. Due process. Protesters must be told why they are arrested. Right to legal representation and fair process. Laws restricting protests must not be vague or overbroad. And then we looked at California Penal Code 185. It makes it illegal to wear a mask only when tied to committing or attempting a crime to avoid ID. It shall be unlawful for any person to wear any mask, false whiskers, or any personal disguise, whether complete or partial, for the purpose of, number one, evading or escaping discovery, recognition, or identification in the commission of any public offense. And number two, concealment, flight, or escape when charged with, arrested for, or convicted of any public offense. Any person violating any of the provisions of this section shall be deemed guilty of a misdemeanor. So in looking at some of the other cities, first of all, California has about 482 incorporated cities and almost 39, you might as well say 40 million people in population. We looked at the city of Oakland with a population of 443,554 people. And there is a, if you're interested in looking at the ordinance that the city of Oakland has, that's the information that you have there. We're not going to go in detail with all of what they are, but we're providing input for you to do your own research. Modesto, which has a population of 220,592 people. And then the city of Lomita with a population of 20,662. These are the three cities that have, that we saw that have mask ordinance. Next slide. On a national context, Georgia and Virginia still enforce anti-mask laws. New York State and Washington, D.C. repealed theirs in 2020. North Carolina rolled back a recent expansion after backlash, and Los Angeles, California does not have a mask ordinance within their ordinance. And the trend is that broad anti-mask laws are legally vulnerable.
All right, on to the next slide. in here, we just wanted to inform, the board on the letters that we received from the public. So, American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, the First Amendment Coalition, the NAACP, the CV BIPOC. We also received a letter from Phil Trumpeter and a letter from the Fellowship of Stanislaus Unitarian Universal. These letters reflect different perspectives. Several of them urge to repeal the mass subsection. Other suggestions suggest, amending to clarify intent, exceptions, and procedures. Common themes across these letters include clear communication, language access, and alignment with state law. We have not received any additional submission beyond these, so we just worked with what we got from the community here. And then on to the next slide, if you can. And then on this slide here, it talked about a community engagement survey. So our ad hoc committee did create and develop a sample survey that we wanted to put out to the community. It was a series of 10 questions. They asked anywhere from how did you hear about the survey to what do you feel about the ordinance? How do you feel it should read? Do you feel repeal, amend? Asked a series of 10 questions, but we also wanted to not put that survey out to the public quite yet because we wanted to bring it to the board and let them review the survey. At this moment, the survey is not included in this presentation, but they will be able to look at it to give their responses. But then to another point is we also sent the survey to the city because we wanted to include the city in our process. We wanted to make sure that they can be a part of the creation of this, be transparent with what kind of survey we're thinking about. And the response from the city was they expressed a lot of interest in partnering with the CPRB on the survey. They wanted to add, possible questions or even figure out how we're going to administer this survey so that it's given fairly to everyone in the community. Let me just look at a few other notes here. And when it comes to administering to the public, I feel like it is fair to ask for it to be given out fairly so we get an equal amount of responses from different community members. But I also think that this survey should be anonymous to where people don't have to give any of their personal information except for maybe a zip code, no name, no address, anything like that. But these are all just things that we are going to have further discussion on. So tonight, you guys can feel free to give any input on that, but we are still working with the city on that. And yeah, further discussions are underway. So that's pretty much what we're at with the survey. There are a few other possible roads that we can get into. And I think at the end of our presentation, I'll be getting into that a little bit further because we have a couple options that we've been in communication with the city. So after this presentation, we'll go into that. Thank you.
Am I on? Yes, I am. All right. The mass ordinance concerns. First Amendment concerns chilling effect on free speech and assembly. Courts recognizing that mass can be used for expressive purposes. If a law broadly bans mass, it risks deterring people from attending protests altogether, especially since the COVID era. Freedom of speech. Symbolic acts such as masks or face coverings with artistic or graphic expressions could be argued as a freedom of speech. Another concern is overbreadth doctrine. If an ordinance criminalizes wearing any mask, excuse me?
Next slide, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I'm not looking at the slides over there. I'm looking at them here. If an ordinance criminalizes wearing any mask or face covering at a protest, even peaceful ones, it may be struck down as overly broad since it punishes a substantial amount of constitutionally protected activity along with any unprotected conduct. Equal protection and selective enforcement. If police officers themselves wear tactical gear while prohibiting protesters from doing so, it could show unequal treatment. Selective enforcement, especially targeting certain groups, raises 14th Amendment concerns. Next slide. Discriminatory intent or impact. If evidence shows the ordinance I couldn't pour glasses, disproportionately enforced against specific racial, let me read it from here, ethnic or political groups, it could be challenged as unconstitutional under equal protection principles. Vagueness and due process. If an ordinance does not clearly define what qualifies as a mask or face covering, or if it leaves too much discretion to law enforcement, it risks being struck down as void for vagueness. Vague laws can lead to arbitrary enforcement violating due process. Next slide. In conclusion, our current ordinance is in need of revision. With political violence on the rise and more protests expected, public safety must be understood as a shared responsibility. The relationship between law enforcement and the community is reciprocal. Each depends on the other. While the ordinance highlights important challenges, it also creates an opportunity to reimagine how law enforcement and the community can collaborate to strengthen public safety in ways tailored to our community's unique needs. Next. This me too, yeah. Our committee recommendations to our Community Police Review Board. To repeal the mass ordinance provision, section MMC 4-23.02, subsection 13, and refer the remaining sections to the city manager and legal counsel for review of other potential amendments. Authorize the use of megaphones by event organizers to ensure safety and effective communication with participants during protests. Human capital, people, and relationships are the most effective tool in identifying and catching suspects with ill intent. Train organizers and volunteers on crowdsourcing public safety that can provide additional eyes and ears to report suspicious activities. In closing, this is our moment to learn from the past, grow with wisdom, adapt with courage, unite in purpose, and move forward together toward a stronger future. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. All right. So moving on from that, I asked the board, are there any questions that they have so that we can have this discussion or comments in regard to this as well?
Since we don't have the ordinance directly in front of us, and you suggest repealing this certain portion, can somebody read what that portion is that needs to, or is being requested to be repealed? What specific is that? Yeah. Is it, I mean, I know
Only
there
the
are.
mask, but I can.
Yeah.
I don't think I have it right in front of me. I can look it up. While we wait, is there anyone else has any comments?
Yeah, Chair, I have a question for the committee, and I'm not sure who wants to respond to
Yeah.
this, but did the committee go back and look at the documentation that the city council reviewed prior to their adoption of the ordinance in 2018, and then again in 2021 when they amended sections of the ordinance? Did you go back and look at the documentation presented to the city council in order for them to come to a conclusion about whether or not to adopt this ordinance?
Yeah, so that was one of the first things we did was we gathered the ordinance, the original ordinance when it was established. We read that out, within our group. And then we also did the same for the amended ordinance, 2021, I believe it was. So yeah, we did take that into consideration as well. There were some key findings within that ordinance prior to the city adopting it. So we looked into that and we did question some of the things that were on there, but those key findings were in regards to the ordinance as a whole. And so this part of our mask recommendation to the board on what to do with the mask is solely just a subsection 13.
Okay. The next comment that I have is regarding the potential of a community survey. And I'm very much in favor of that. However, I believe a neutral third party needs to craft the survey and the language and the methodology for collecting the data for contacting members of the community. I'm certainly not an expert in that, and I don't know if anybody on the board has experience in that, or if anybody, in the city manager's office has expertise in that. But I suspect that in order for this to produce meaningful data that's objective, it would have to be crafted in such a way that it isn't slanted to produce a certain outcome. And I think in order to do that, you have to have, I would suggest you have to have a neutral third party craft the survey and how it's presented.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, we can go deeper into that. I do have options in regards to that comment made. And yeah, Frank, I pulled up the subsection 13, so I'm gonna go ahead and read it. The wearing of a mask, scarf, bandana, or any other accessory or item that covers or partially covers the face, shielding the wearer's face from view and conceals the wearer's identity, except for coverings worn due to religious beliefs, practices, or observations, or due to medical necessities. You're welcome. Any other board member? No? Okay.
I'll jump in just to initially to offer appreciation. Clearly, you put a lot of time into this. I am appreciating how broad you went about it, the different sources, the different things you looked at and considered. It's a lot to take in all of that at one sitting. This is the first time, at least I am hearing this, so I don't know if it went to some of the committee, some of the board ahead of time. At the time of my briefing, it wasn't ready. So to do a full wash through with some of this, it's a lot of good content, but can't digest it all in one moment.
Yeah. The hard part with that is, of course, our briefings. We don't always go over the presentations until the meeting gets started, and then we also can't have one of the ad hoc committee members in the room or in the meeting with everyone else. Brown Act kind of rules and things like that. So even if it was ready, there was not really a guarantee that we'd be able to go over it.
I'm not offering
or
a
anything,
complaint.
but- No, yeah,
It's an
but
acknowledgement that
of course,
first time.
Of course. Nancy?
Go ahead, Nancy.
The third recommendation about training organizers and volunteers on crowdsourcing public safety, what was the ad hoc committee's idea of who would do that training?
We thought that the police department would do the training, because when you look at when people are caught in different events, large events like that, no matter how many police officers you have, you can't watch everything. So the more eyes and ears that you can have on the ground mixed in the crowd. And so the ideal of that is that perhaps the police department could train volunteers to be the eyes and ears out there, boots on the ground, and if they see something suspicious, if you see something, say something. They would be trained on how to contact law enforcement right away. They would be given numbers. And so all of the responsibility of keeping the community safe would not just be fall on the shoulders of law enforcement, but it would give the community part of that responsibility too. That's how you catch people too. You put something out to the community and you'll be surprised at all of the information that comes in.
And then also, I just want to kind of add into that. Remember, these are just recommendations to the board on avenues that we can go. So another kind of part of the human capital and relationships. There's also a topic that I would like to bring up in a future topic of discussions about public order policing and what it could look like for the police department to have a police officer in kind of a dressed down uniform in the protest, in the middle of the protest, to have eyes and just follow along and things like that. It's a concept. There's other states that use it in Washington, things like that, but it's something that we can bring out and talk about. So that's another thing.
Well, since we're not going to talk about it too much now, I mean, I think there's a few problems with those ideas, but if we're not going to spend time discussing it now, that's fine with me.
Yeah, this is, again, just a presentation to the board, not anything that's going to the city manager. Nothing is a final recommendation from this presentation.
I mean, I totally agree with the recommendation. Probably should have pressed that again, to repeal the ordinance and authorize the use of megaphones. I just have some questions about that third. So, and I do appreciate all the work y'all did.
Thank you.
I can speak to the megaphone issue. A lot of the event organizers who, and quite a few work with the police department in helping to communicate. But for example, when you're out and you have a bunch of people and they have to, and I know this is true because at the one ordinance, it was very hard to hear the person, the organizer that was trying to give out different rules and tell their group, stay on the sidewalks. I mean, they can be really resourceful in helping the police control their followings. They're trusted amongst the people that they are gathering for the event. And so just allowing them, not everybody, but just allowing these event organizers to have a megaphone to help control their folks.
Good idea.
And I have talked to some other event organizers, and they think that's a great idea.
That got added late in the game on our work, and I have a problem with it because how do you enforce it? I mean, who's gonna say that I'm not an organizer and I have a megaphone, because they can also be used to incite if the wrong person has that. So that, and plus there's a noise ordinance. I live right near where this activity was, and I wouldn't have liked to have, all of that. It was already pretty loud. So I'm not saying I disagree with it. I think it needs a little bit more refining of how that would come about, because it's impossible to enforce. In my
Yeah, I think talking to more of the event organizers and getting their perspective on.
Yeah.
And then also working with the police department and, seeing how we can all work together on making that available to protesters.
I have another comment,
Yeah.
Chair. Since this is a report from this ad hoc committee, what is the intent for us? Are we supposed to take a vote on this at some time, or what is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I can go ahead and give a couple options on routes that we can take. I have about 3 or 4, so I could just kind of go over them and then we can continue the conversation. One option, so when you brought up the third-party survey, to be crafted by a third party. So the city, and meeting with the city in regards to the survey, they have a partner by the name of Problowski, I believe it is. Yeah, Problowski. And they are currently working with the city for a civic engagement survey that goes out annually to a specific, they have a strategic plan how they release the survey. It's very strategic, but this is something that's more rushed. It is one of the options where basically we can recommend the repeal of the mask ordinance. We could recommend the survey be passed on to the city and the third-party research partner, because they said that they can include maybe 2 to 3 questions in that survey for, future council discussions on this item. But the thing is that, the question is, we don't control that at all. We don't control the instrument, the sampling, or the rollout of that. The city controls it all. Why would we choose that option? It's fast because this is something that will be put out within the next 2 months or 2 weeks. So they already asked their third party to come up with some sample questions. So they're already in the works of that, but it is going to be only 2 or 3 questions. It's fast. It's likely more representative. The CPRB can still proceed with a mask recommendation tonight if they wanted to, independent of the survey results. The trade-off is just a limited depth and no CPRB fact sheet or anything. The survey that Proplowski also puts out there's no information tied to that survey, and information about the ordinance. So something with our survey, it's my fault. I should have kind of planned it better, but in the survey that we kind of drafted there's a link to show, a lot of these letters, and it's more to inform the public on what is going on. It has the mask ordinance, the city ordinance as the, 4-23.02, the full ordinance, the amended ordinance, the letters from the public, sample amended ordinances that we received. And with that avenue, I feel like the community can be more informed on the topic and make a educated response in the survey. But if we go the route to just passing on to a third party, they won't have that advantage of actually knowing what those questions are about. So again, one option is just to pass it back to the city, 2 or 3 quick question survey within the next few weeks. Option B, adopt a special recommendation tonight asking the city manager or city attorney for a time-bound review of the ordinance and subsection 13 with some safeguards, as in, let's just let them put the legal analysis, because that's not within our scope of work to do. So if we just give a special recommendation tonight telling the city, we don't have anything except that we want you guys to give a legal analysis and come back to us and let us read the report, and then we can make a final decision on the mask ordinance and what we want to do with that recommendation. Why choose that route? It's immediate risk mitigation, community input before final action. And the trade-off is just more coordination work and more steps to getting to that final decision, that final recommendation on the mask ordinance and what we choose to do. Another option, option C, is we make a recommendation now and we do the survey later. So we move forward with the recommendation on subsection 13 tonight, and we still try to partner with the city on the survey to give an informative survey at future council deliberations. So this is decisive and timely, and the trade-off is just, it may be perceived as less input driven because we would be making a recommendation without this community survey, without the community giving us their thoughts on it. And, the third option is to move forward with the survey and, partner with the city and have no recommendation tonight. It could just be, let's just partner with the city on the survey and see how they want to roll it out and have further discussions that maximizes input before we take any action. And the trade-off is it just delays an immediate guidance. It delays it a little bit longer before we make any formal final recommendations. So those are a few options that I came up with that I wanted to share with you guys. So we have a few different routes, and this is kind of why we wanted to have this discussion to see where it is that we want to go as a board. So yeah, if there's any other comments or questions about that.
I have a question for staff. The city survey, you're expecting to have it launch in the next 2 weeks. Do you have an estimate of turnaround time for results from that?
Yes, Board Member Christensen. So the city actually has a workshop that we're going to be planning with the council on several topics where this survey is going to inform them. And I believe that's sometime in November. So that means we've got a pretty quick turnaround. What they do is, I mean, it's a lot of information. They actually did one for us, I believe, last year, kind of around this time. Very comprehensive. So it takes them a little bit of time to put, well, some significant time to put that together as a firm. But as mentioned before, it's very comprehensive. It's objective. Got a very scientific approach. It's got a very, methodical approach in making sure that the whole city is represented, businesses and residents alike. And so, yeah, it takes some time, but I'm sorry, it should have been a short answer. It's in November.
And you may not have this answer. Is that anticipated before our November board meeting, our meeting?
It may be. I don't have that information at the ready right now. I apologize.
My off the top feeling, Chair, is we don't have to necessarily pick or choose one route here from the options you laid out. In my opinion, we could insert the 3 or so questions that they can allot us that are completely neutral, broader audience, see what we get. Whether or not we choose to wait for those results, we could sit with the ones you guys have crafted, come up with an ability for it to be shared with us so we could one-off respond with thoughts or feedback. And I don't see anything wrong with asking. It still goes to staff to have a legal analysis done. At least it shows the community we're taking steps to better understand where the legality sits so that we are more informed in helping guide a suggestion or recommendation to city manager.
Okay, thank you. Frank? you had
Yeah,
something?
I don't know what purpose we have to determine legality. I was told that was really not our purpose. Our purpose is to discuss policy and make the policy proposal. It's going to be discussed. The legality is going to be discussed no matter what we do. And all we have to do is propose the policy. As we're not attorneys, and even if the attorney came back to us, I mean, that's just an extra step that we don't need to be involved in. They need to talk to this council, not us, the attorneys, that is. My idea is, I like the first proposal. Number 1, repeal of the mask mandate. I agree that that there should be the use of megaphones by organizers, but only by organizers. I can see Brad's concern that it just be a cacophony of all kinds of noisemakers. You do want to have some kind of organization of the organizers. They have to maybe identify themselves both to the police and then and the city, and then possibly at the event I went to, they were wearing brightly colored fluorescent vests, and I did not see anyone else utilizing megaphones, and I don't think that's by design. That's just people weren't they. I don't think that's and people went there to just be loud. I think they were there to be purposeful. Maybe that won't be every event. So I definitely think they should be identified and to the police. I don't like the idea of putting an unclothed officer in the midst of everyone. I think that's a little dangerous for the officer and for the people. I just wouldn't entertain that. And but I do like the idea. Number 3, we do need some kind of engagement and coaching in the future so that we're all on the same page. I know that there was the BIPOC group met and a lot of people weren't even aware of the mask ordinance. They weren't aware of the megaphone issues. And I think that kind of devolved because of lack of lack of communication to these groups that will be protesting. So.
Thank you.
Chair.
Yes.
I believe that for us to take any action prior to having the community's input from a professionally crafted and strategically presented survey, I'm not in favor of that.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna have a couple more board members speak, and then we'll pass it to the public and let them talk, and then we'll bring it back to the board, and then we can try to discuss what it is we're gonna do from here. Brad, did you have anything?
Yes.
Okay.
I was on the subcommittee and spent a lot of time looking at all the ordinances and all the information that's there. And my gut feeling on this is that we need to deal with the mask ordinance. What is maybe not understood is that this is being able to be arrested for having a mask, period, nothing else. Within the California Penal Code and also in our ordinance, down, if you read down, it linking wearing a mask to hide your identity while you're doing something wrong brings it into a misdemeanor, but not just the facial wearing of a mask. To me, that seems like sort of like a no-brainer to do, just eliminate that and then continue to study the ramifications of making things better. The survey, the human capital, the megaphones, those are all things that can be studied in the future. But I just feel kicking the can down the road. I think that's where we're going to end up with this. And I think it's on just face value. Forget about what my views or other people's views are. That the mask ordinance by itself being a misdemeanor is a very difficult one, and it's a matter, and as a matter of policy. And I know I'm not getting into the legal part, but that's kind of where I've ended up on this thing.
I got a couple comments. So it's not the mask ordinance by itself, it's when you use the mask ordinance alone, absent of behavior, to arrest people.
That's
where
what
the
I'm
problem
saying.
is. And then too, I think that there is a little urgency in it because there are other protests that are being planned. And so I think a lot of people in the community are confused. So I think at some point, somebody has to, and it's not going to be us because that's not our job. That's the city manager's job and the city attorneys and all the other folks that are legal to try to do something sooner than later to provide more direction for the community, because there are other protests that are being planned. And so what's going to happen? Are people going to get arrested again for wearing masks because you suspect they may be guilty of committing a crime? Is the same repeat thing, going to happen again? So I think that there needs to be some more immediate clarification on when a person is arrested, whether they have the mask on or not.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we're gonna open it up to the public for public comment. So if you have a public comment in regards to the presentation that we just gave, please, I will also read names off of what I received, but please proceed. You guys will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Ryan Roth Gallo, and I live in the city of Modesto. I am an attorney. I have a sole practice out of my home. And I want to thank the ad hoc committee for the time and effort that you put into this. It's a really good report. And I want to thank the board for your very interesting discussion on it as well. I am very concerned that this code violates constitutional rights. It's overly broad, it's vague, and I think it really needs to be repealed. You can't really amend it to make it right. It needs to be repealed, and I think it needs to be repealed before the survey. Now, normally, I wouldn't say that because I like data, and I feel more comfortable with the idea that everyone in Modesto would get a chance to think about it and give some feedback. I mean, that does sound nice, and that would be nice, but time is of the essence here because people's constitutional rights are being already violated, and we're asking our police, if we actually care about the people who are policing us because they are part of our community, we are asking them to violate their brothers and sisters' rights to continue doing that, and that's not appropriate. So I'm very grateful to hear there is support for repeal of this ordinance. And I think that we should just urgently consider doing that before the survey in this particular instance. Normally, like I said, I would want more data and I would want the whole community to have input into something like this. But it's just we can't always have that. You know, sometimes we have to act to protect rights that are being violated. Just briefly also, very in favor of the Zoom comments, better publicity, and I want to thank you all again for your service.
Thank you so much. Steve?
I do want to say thank you to the ad hoc community. There are a lot of things in this that I see that I'm liking. And I wanted to say, Ms. Bird, my thoughts went back to my memories of all the like crazy experiences of me coming in here. And it's just nice to have you back and you seem healthy. I don't know all the details of your life, but I've said this already, but it is truly to see you good to see you sitting there with us. Wow. So I know you guys are going to cut me off, but I have to hurry here, don't I?
Yes, sir.
The first thing, I brought a prop in with me tonight, and it was easy not to forget it like I'm prone to because it's attached to my arm. You can't really tell, but the finger that the pigs broke is still a little bit wobbly, but most of what's left is like the stiffness, so it's healing, and it just struck me as an interesting metaphor. Do you guys remember when Brandon did his presentation on trying to justify his enforcement of this ridiculous code? And it basically amounted to him using like cop speak, basically saying that they arrested people that were a part of the crowd that looked like the bad guys. BIPOC people. That's what we're talking about here, BIPOC, and people with like somewhat barely even leftist ways of looking at the world, right? Yeah, so they went after the bad guys, knowing that they did not have to have a conviction. So they just haphazardly threw 6 of us into jail, breaking my finger. And you know what I'm doing now is I'm working damn hard to keep my life going and to keep on trucking, to keep John smiling, right? Okay, so this is my life. Now, this dude over here might not think, what can I do to fuck over that guy that talks too much shit about me and my violent thugs? But that doesn't mean that this is not a desired effect. It doesn't mean that, by the way, my finances are screwed because of my arrest. Long story short, like there's a hiccup and I am not able to work right now. And it's hopefully going to be cleared up really soon so I can go back to work. You know, you guys, it's disgusting that you only give us 3 minutes. It's disgusting. I'm not even messing around. You guys think I'm being hyperbolic? It's disgusting. I have no time to talk about all these things. But I want to point out a couple things very fast. Phil Trumpeter worked for the Modesto Police Department for how many years? I just want you guys to bear that in mind. Okay, his daughter got a great chance to boost her career with Forward Together. Kate's a great person. She's always been very kind to me, but it's something to bear in mind. Lastly, I don't know what happened, and maybe I just got confused, but it sure sounded like this community police review board all of the sudden steered off course in the discussion a little bit earlier and started talking about putting together brown coats, throw out in the street in the middle of protests. Your job is not to come up with ways to help the cops control us better, which is what it really started to sound like. Hell no, I don't want some cop in the middle of me trying to speak out for what's right. That part was super duper awkward.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you.
Appreciate you guys.
There's a lot of
No brown coats.
There's a lot of information about what I did bring up, and that's going to be a future topic to where you guys will be able to understand a lot more. It's a really good concept, and with future topic we could talk about. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you so much for this. I came here not realizing that this was on the agenda, so I had a statement prepared. But first of all, my name's Mary Rogers, and I worked in the criminal justice system for 30 years in Alameda County. I know all about red tape, and I understand the reasons why it goes in that direction so often. My biggest concern after hearing the presentation and reading it is what you said, Mrs. Bird, the urgency. We have major protests coming up soon. I don't want this mask ordinance to be on the records when those occur. Or at the very least, there needs to be some deep understanding that it will not be implemented by the police. I realize that the board here is going to be giving a recommendation to city manager. So, and I understand the survey. It sounds good, I guess, but what I don't understand is how the urgency of this is going to be resolved prior to future protests. And that's my biggest concern. So I urge you to make a recommendation as immediately as you can and to stress that your board considers this to be a matter that at least the mask portion of the ordinance needs to be lifted until a final decision is made. Thank you.
So yeah, as I further or earlier had mentioned about you guys kind of being controlled opposition, basically a funnel for outrage, criticism, and everything to just basically die. I'm kind of, after some of the suggestions that were given, I fully believe that now. Some of the suggestions were to review the police policies and review were to give them more power and basically train people to report to the police. I don't know if anybody's horror fans, but it kind of sounds like the call is coming from inside the house. I don't understand if you guys, and I know I previously stated and I understand it, that you guys don't really have any fangs, you guys don't have any weight, you guys don't really have much power, but to suggest things to review police action is to give them more action is redundant. It's asinine. I don't fully understand it. But maybe yeah. But just to give a quote, like I said, I'm a history major, political science. I do a lot of reading, not only on policies, politics, just things in general. But this is by Chris Hedges. He's an American journalist and someone who's very educated, further than me. He has his master's in history from Harvard. I don't know if history, but anyways. He says, the final stages of capitalism, Karl Marx predicted, would be marked by global capital being unable to expand and generate profits at former levels. Capitalists would begin to consume the government along with the physical and social structures that sustain them. Democracy, social welfare, electoral participation, which we see literally within this last week, the common good, the investment in public transportation, roads, bridges, utilities, industry, education, ecosystems protection, and healthcare would be sacrificed to feed the mania of short-term profit. These assaults would destroy the host. And in order for that to be done, you need somebody or a system to receive more of that funding in order to enforce that. And as I learned today, that the police receiving about 50% of the Modesto budget is just proof of that to me. History proves, and everything that I've learned thus far, that the more power and more money you give to enforcement, the more you descend and the more freedom is taken away from the civilian population. And you get descent into fascism. Everywhere I've studied and learned, you see that by more concentrating power and wealth into certain groups, you see more infringement and more rights being taken away. And to suggest that the police should be given more is just asinine to me. Thank you.
Thank you. I know you guys love doing your research, so if you guys want to go ahead and just look up public order policing, and also known as dialogue policing, you guys can feel free to do the research, but it is a topic that we will I'll bring to the table that see if it's going to be a future topic to discuss. It's just a way to try to help the community and the police have better communication, guys. So that's all it is. But go ahead, please, and thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Nora. I'm a resident of Modesto. Some of my planned comments were addressed by the presentation and other speakers, so I apologize for any redundancy. First, I really appreciate the presentation given today and its conclusion regarding lifting the mask ban. In the past months, this board has stressed the need for well thought out research before making any recommendations. And as the reason why this report was delayed for months after the incidents of the June protests. And it is clear from the quality of the report that we saw tonight that that is exactly what happened. So I appreciate the thorough research there. But it does make me wonder why, when considering whether or not to amend a problematic regulation, this city does take months of analysis. But when a Modesto police chief decided to present the ordinance in the first place, all it took was a half-baked PowerPoint presentation with no real relevant data for it to be approved. The difference between tonight's report and the picture book of fear-mongering MPD prepared both before the mask ban was put into place and afterwards by Chief Gillespie to justify it would be laughable if it didn't impact our community the way that it does. Second, I would like to agree with previous speakers and urge this board to separate the recommendations to remove the mask ban from any future coordination between police and organizers, megaphones, or any other matter as a separate issue. The issue of the mask ban has been delayed enough, and adding another topic would only prolong that more. And lastly, I am deeply concerned that this board would even consider suggesting MPD having the power to educate or identify organizers. The entire reason we are having this discussion is because MPD acted in a biased way when choosing who to arrest and which organizers to target in the first place. I would hate to see future protests being affected by this bias and have certain organizers not educated and then penalized for not being educated by the police department and restricting their speech in their organization even further. I'd love to live in a future where officers and the community can fully trust each other in the way that TV has lied to us in the past several years, but we have to register that there is an imbalance of power, and the relationship between the public and the police currently is toxic, and we need to keep this toxicity in mind before giving the armed historic abusers, like the previous speaker said, even more power than they already have. That's my time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, CPRB. My name is Harlan Diven. I'm a resident of Modesto. I'm a local attorney. I'm a civil rights attorney and a legal aid attorney. I work closely in the community, which is what brought me to the jail on on June 14th to talk to different protesters who had been arrested that night. Steve's hand was broken. I asked for ice from the sheriffs 3 times. They literally laughed at me. It was really offensive. I've worked with Oakland PD. I've worked with LAPD. I've seen tactics very similar to what Modesto PD put in place on the 14th. One of my concerns is that this body is not asking for an investigation of those tactics. It seems to be completely looked over. People have asked for it over and over again in city council, in this body. This body has the right and the responsibility to make that recommendation to city council, and I would urge you to consider that going forward. What you are considering is the survey. And what I would say to that survey is you've heard from the public for 3 months. We're right here. The public has been in city council meetings, in these meetings, and if I looking back on the minutes from the last month, every comment that was made was anti this ordinance. So I would ask, who are you listening to? Who do you want to talk to, and who have you not reached? It's a question of outreach, not of a survey. Again, the public is here. I don't have time to be here, but I'm here because this matters. So the survey, I think, is there's lots of good energy being put into that, but you only have so much energy, and it's going to be a huge lift, that survey. And for what? Really, for what? And if you're talking about bringing in a third party, that costs money. You're spending city money on a survey that you already have heard from the public, again, for 3 months, and we've been saying the same thing over and over. So I'm asking for an investigation. I'm asking you to reconsider this survey very seriously and the time you're going to put into it and where it could be better spent by this body. People who join this body care about the public. They care about police oversight. I was just considering joining the sheriff's oversight board, but I looked at where are the teeth? What can I do? Where do I want to be in my community? I want to be on this side telling you guys this is wrong. This is dangerous. This law is, like people have been saying, vague, overbroad. Oh, I'm running out of time. And constitutionally untenable. So I agree with moving forward with this repeal now. I'm concerned about the other 2 pieces, the megaphone and the human capital piece. I'm going to say this very quickly. The megaphone, asking organizers to identify themselves to police is dangerous. Organizers were targeted here in the protest. That's part of why we're here. Secondly, the human capital, turning citizens into informers is not what this body should be doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. This is Laricana again. I want to express my genuine appreciation to the members of the ad hoc committee for standing with the community and standing on the right side of history by putting forth a recommendation in this presentation to repeal Modesto Municipal Code 4-23.02, subsection 13. I urge the remaining members of CPRB to join your colleagues in support of immediately pushing forth this recommendation to repeal the masking provision in the ordinance to the city manager without further delay. It is confusing to me to hear from some of you that community input in the form of a quote-unquote professional survey is needed. Community has been giving you input, and I don't appreciate the erasure of our voices. I am a community member, and I am sharing my input. As myself and many community members have shared in multiple public comments in the past 3 CPRB meetings, this ordinance is unconstitutional. It represses our freedom of speech and does not keep vulnerable members of the public safe. Again, I want to emphasize the ordinance was weaponized by MPD on June 14th at the Central Valley BIPOC Coalition's anti-deportation protests, where police officers targeted, arrested, assaulted, and detained for nearly 12 hours 6 peaceful protesters, 3 who were unhoused youth, and 3 who are people of color, while predominantly white protesters at the No Kings demonstration who also wore masks on that same day were left unbothered. It is notable that while white organizers of No Kings are already happily sharing their plans for their next protest, the people of color who organized the anti-deportation protest have been stuck in city hall meetings for the last 3 months, fighting to protect what should be our inherent and uncontested right to safely and peacefully assemble in public spaces. Experts on civil liberties, such as the ACLU and the First Amendment Coalition, stand with us and agree that this ordinance, as written, creates the conditions for law enforcement to profile and discriminate against people who wish to speak truth to power while protecting ourselves from surveillance, doxing, harassment, and militarized aggression by both the police and violent vigilantes. This contextual information is critical for everyone who is taking the proposed community survey on the ordinance to know. Although I don't agree that the survey is necessary and is yet another bureaucratic delay and derailment, should the survey be pushed forward, then survey takers must be provided with the knowledge of the recent events and discourse surrounding this ordinance. Otherwise, people are being asked to provide input in ignorance. Most importantly, I want to emphasize, regardless of the nature of the survey responses you receive, this ordinance will still be discriminatory, unconstitutional, and a threat to community safety, contrary to what out-of-touch armchair experts may compel or coerce anyone to believe. Uninformed public opinion does not negate this reality. I truly hope the board is not led astray by institutionally biased authority figures who are afforded protections, privileges, and impunity that everyday people of color, unhoused people, and young people and immigrants are not. Simply put, masking in public should not be a crime. The First Amendment has no dress code, and any policy that indicates otherwise is a gross violation of our right to protected anonymous speech. Municipal Code 4-23.02, subsection 13 must be recommended to be repealed immediately and nothing less. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Efren, and I'm a member of CV BIPOC. I'm one of the organizers who put on the June 14th Ice Out for the Central Valley protest, and I'm here to urge the board to recommend the City Council that the anti-masking provision in Municipal Code 4-23.02 be repealed, as well as a private investigation of MPD's conduct, tactics, and use of power. Before I continue, I want to state that I am grateful for the hard work that some members of the board have put into working with community members and community organizations to demand justice. The people of Modesto know firsthand how difficult it can be to make change in a city that is controlled by the police, specifically by Modesto Police Chief Brandon Gillespie and his thugs. We understand your frustration when this board was created to hold the police accountable, but yet was left without any power to do so and is undermined by MPD and the city. We see your efforts and acknowledge them. Nonetheless, we urge you all to recommend to the city that the anti-masking provision is repealed. Like many of my colleagues and comrades have stated, this ordinance has created a condition for MPD to enforce the ordinance as they see fit. On June 14th, MPD chose to utilize the mask ordinance to detain our protest, point 12-gauge shotguns to an unarmed crowd, and throw civilians in unmarked vehicles. You would think that the way they acted that day, they were bounty hunters or Proud Boys, but no, they were our very own police department. Some people have called their behavior professional and said they were doing their job, and I agree. They were doing exactly what the police were meant to do, which is social control and protection of property. They wanted to intimidate the relatively young protesters that were people of color who refused to collaborate with the police. When we arrived at the Crusader Park, indivisible Santa Claus had megaphones, speakers, flags, and masks, yet we were the ones targeted, detained, and followed through the streets and harassed. You look back at that day and told me that wasn't a violation of our right to protest, that we weren't targeted by the color of our skin. The ACLU agrees with us and will sue the city and will win. So I ask you all again and will continue to ask you to recommend the City Council to repeal the mask ordinance. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Leah Hassett. I live in Modesto. I've been here several times, and I want to reiterate what the last speaker and the speaker before said. And I was outside for a bit, but I just want to second everything they said. I was there at the CV BIPOC protest, and I saw people being unlawfully targeted and arrested, and it was devastating, and I lost my trust in the Modesto City Police. And I was very interested and encouraged listening to the presentation tonight. I was very encouraged about the recommendation to repeal the mask part of the ordinance, and I would encourage that to go forward. The idea of having a survey doesn't sit right with me at all. I'm trying to understand what a survey would do, whether or not it just doesn't it seems completely wrong. It feels like a distraction. It feels like abdicating responsibility for making a decision. It feels like allowing other people to decide what's right for people who might be sick or feeling afraid to be sick when they're in a crowd of people. It just feels completely wrong. And it would just, yeah, it seems almost like an election, like, well, we'll let the people, I just, no, nah, that's just it. Wrong direction. I also want to say that I really, really would encourage people who, you know, I know, I don't know if people have know the history of American protests, but I think that, you know, especially like the police could really use maybe a different viewpoint about what protesters do. I was really struck by one of the people that got up at one of the earlier meetings talking about CV BIPOC and mentioning all of the things that that organization does for the community. And I would maintain that the people that are here tonight and the people that are ones that would care to protest, because it's hard to protest, you know, it takes a lot of energy and it's really hard to organize. It's one of the hardest jobs I've ever seen anybody do. So those are people that care. These are the good citizens. I mean, these are the really, really engaged people, and people that show up for protests are. So maybe instead of doing the thing where you don't trust them and think they're closer to criminals, maybe think they're closer to, you know, pillars of our community, because that's what I really feel is true. I just really encourage you and all police to look at the good that people do when they hold their governments to account. And that's all.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Janessa Gonzalez. I wasn't planning on speaking, so it's probably a little scattered. But I just wanted to comment on the recommendation for the human capital. I don't know, this idea that MPD is going to train us when they've proven to be biased and aggressive and untrustworthy, like that doesn't draw us to want to participate with them. Like as someone who was at the ICE Out protest, even at the last presentation that the chief gave, where he stated that the ICE Out organizers were unorganized and not communicating, I was there with my friends, like we were all repeating, we were doing the exact same things that they did at the No Kings protest, but we were targeted and just harassed the whole time. And like the fact that he can stand up here and give a false testimony, why would we trust them to want to work with us? And like, that's just kind of ridiculous. And I think if this board wants to have an impact, then you need to use tactics that can reach people, especially since most of these meetings have the same amount of people and it's the same one showing up, speaking over and over again, and you guys aren't even like taking these into consideration, it feels like. Like, and even the comment about MPD basically having 50% of our budget, like they can be using that budget to communicate better with the community, especially like MPD has 56,000 followers on Instagram. City of Modesto has 12,000 followers. Like they have a huge domain where they can be, if they're actually concerned about these protests and wanting to educate people on suspicious things to look for, literally make a video, especially when half of these protests are young people who are concerned. A lot of young people and even older people are on social media. This is where we're getting all of our information. This is how we find out about protests. Like, why would they not use that as a tool? We know that they're on social media. He said that they were monitoring before the protests, after the protests, everyone's posts. Like, they're already looking at all of our posts, so why would they not want to engage with the community in ways that we feel safe, where we know that, you know, they're not like in the middle of our protest crowd or whatever. Especially with the idea from earlier about having someone on the board who's under 18, like people don't know about this. Like young people don't know about this, especially when young people are like, it's 5:30 on a school night. Like, why would they be here? So I don't know. I just think we should utilize better tools to communicate and speak in language that our community can actually hear and know about. Yeah, sorry, I'm running out of time. But yeah, I don't know. I just think that there's better ways that they can use their resources. And if they're actually concerned about these protests becoming violent when they're organized to be peaceful protests, like the ICE Out protests only became aggressive because MPD made it that way. Like, I don't know. I'm just not compelled to want to interact when they haven't respected us as peaceful protesters using our own rights. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Is there, oh,
Hello again, Madison. I have a couple of questions. I don't know if you'd wait until the end to answer those, but one of my questions about the survey, and I'm sure there's some, I'm sure there's a way that they do it, but I was wondering like who is receiving that survey? Like, is this survey being done in the mail? Is it online? So how's it being sent to people? Like, what database are they, getting people's information from? Another question I had was about the meetings. I think it's I think it's called an ad hoc meeting or whatever, the people who are looking at the mask ordinance. I'm confused on how often they meet, because I know you guys, we all meet once a month. And then so I understand that, you guys went over this information, this slideshow, but like as a community member, like I don't know if everyone else knows and I just don't know, but like, I'm super confused on how this board communicates. And this is kind of just like also going off of what Janessa said, and something I've thought a lot for a long time about this board and the city council is like it's not hard for you guys to make it more easily understandable, like what's going on, how you guys communicate, because like after sitting here tonight and listening to you guys talk, you guys seem pretty confused. I'm like kind of getting more confused. And to me, what it sounds like is, well, he said November. Okay, well, if the city council is going to look at that survey in November, well, are we looking until like literally this upcoming June until this like actually gets repealed? The timeline to me is like, it's just, it seems, I just feel really like, I just feel more confused, I guess, after all of this. And like everybody else, we've been waiting months, and we make time out of our days, as do you guys, like make time out of your days to get here. But I don't know if you guys can like clear up some questions, or maybe just before you guys close this out, provide more clarification. And also, yeah, kind of like what Steven said, it's like we only have 3 minutes to stand here and just talk at you, and then you answer, and then I just hope that you answer my questions. And if you didn't, well then I'll wait another month, so that's not good. And I mean, if I can just end with one thing, it's like, yeah, this needs to be repealed. Like, we can't protest. That's our First Amendment right. Like, that can't be lost upon this board, is like this being drawn out. Well, people can't protest. Like, I think that's a problem. I don't know if you guys think that's a problem, that people feel scared to go out and protest, but I'd say it's a pretty big problem. So it should be pushed, and clarified as well, so that when people do come up here, they know exactly what they want to ask. And we don't have to like ask all these clarifying questions over and over again.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I think I'm gonna try to take a stab at answering your questions there. So I'll start off with the ad hoc and your question on how often do we meet. I want to say our ad hoc committee on this met probably about 6 times within the last month. And our last 2 months, probably a little more than about 6, yeah, about 6, 7 times. And the hardest part about that is getting the time for us to meet. We all have personal lives, we have jobs, we all volunteer for other positions as well. People are just busy. So there's times where it's like same day we have meetings. We're like, hey, is anyone available to meet today? And we're hoping that the entire ad hoc, the 4 of us, can get together and talk about all this stuff. And then when you talk about the board in the sense of being confused about certain things, this is where it comes down to the Brown Act, and we're going to have a discussion about the Brown Act and how it works. But the 4 of us established the ad hoc committee to talk about this. If we were to talk about this with the entire board together, it needs to be an agendized item like it is tonight, and then we talk about it. And the reason why we create the ad hoc is so that we can leave tonight, plan a meeting outside of tonight, and continue the conversations that we're having. So, and then when it comes to like questions on answering your questions, like the following month or something like that, we all have a contact email that you all have access to online on the city website. We're hoping that with the budget that we are asking for, we can get maybe some contact cards so that we can pass out our email to you guys. But there are emails that we all have that you guys can send us an email to clarify any questions, to ask any further questions, and we're able to respond to you guys that way, so that you don't feel like you have to wait a full month. And then when it comes to the survey, so there was a couple different options, like our own survey. So I'm not sure if you're asking about the city survey or our survey, but when it comes to the city survey, there's a group that they partner with named Problosky, who's going to receive that survey. That's a strategic plan that that third party gives the city on, let's just give an example from what my understanding was, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but we have several different zip codes in the city of Modesto. The third party is going to say 25 survey takers in this zip code, 25 in this zip code. 5 of them are going to be business owners. 5 of them are going to be X, Y, and Z. There's different parameters that they put on the survey, and the city, they agree on those parameters. So that's how they look at it in a strategic way. As far as our survey, our plan is, to have that list of 10 questions, to have documentation so that the community is informed. And our plan is to really just put boots on the ground on going to different businesses and posting a one-page QR code. Police Review Board has a survey that's going on. Please take the survey, take the time out of your day and take 15 minutes to read through some stuff or longer, and then take an informed questionnaire here. So there's different ways, and I hope I answered some of your questions. Yeah, that's an option. That is an option on which route we want to go, and that's why we're having this discussion. And we may not come to a conclusion on the survey, but we may come to a conclusion on some sort of recommendation. So yeah, I hope I answered your questions. If there's any further questions from anyone, please just remember that we all have emails and you guys can reach out to us directly. And if you want those emails, reach out to us after this. And if we don't have them right there for you, I mean, maybe a phone number or something, we can try to figure it out. So yeah, I hope I answered some questions there. If there is anyone that hasn't spoke, I didn't catch everyone's names. I didn't mark off. I still have 3 cards. But if anyone hasn't spoke on this topic, is there anyone else that has any comments or questions in regards to the presentation? Okay.
Cool. Hello again.
Hello.
Hi. So I just want to say I appreciate the work of the ad hoc committee so far, and your forming the recommendations. I do think the survey is, I agree, is also unnecessary, as you've had community feedback for the last few months from the public that is, the most likely to be affected by this mask ordinance at protests. We are involved and active in our communities and speak up for what is right. I am also not a fan of the third recommendation and the implication of the second, that organizers must be identified to hold megaphones, and the forming of a sort of, I guess, community police force. The organizers and attendees of protests, as an attendee myself, not of in the past, but we are not interested in collaborating with or being identified by the police. We do not want to form a COINTELPRO style watchdog force. The police have proven not to be our friends and our allies. They've proven this recently and in the past. If they haven't received, if those on the June 14th ICE Out protest, if they have not received consequences for their conduct, what is stopping them from identifying us and kidnapping us at gunpoint when we are alone and vulnerable? It is our right to protest and demonstrate without their permission or surveillance. That's why we're fighting for our right to mask and protect our identities. And I will say, yes, we are angry. We are frustrated. And our emotions do not make our opinions less valid than others. We don't have the luxury of being aloof or impartial. Our own bodies and our friends are at risk, and we ask that you act with the appropriate urgency. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? And excuse me, guys, I'm gonna stand just for a while, but I'm still here, still listening, okay?
All right, well, first of all, I do want to say I'm thankful for the recommendation from the committee to repeal the mask ordinance as well as be less restrictive on the use of a megaphone. But I'm just going to reiterate what everyone else said, and I want to say that I'm completely against the survey. It just feels like it's completely against, it's a complete waste of time. You don't need to survey the people to know that a law is unconstitutional. If we had a law in the book that basically said, hey, Black people, you guys can't go out and protest, you don't need to survey the people of the city to know that that law is unconstitutional. That's pretty much it. Like, I mean, I don't have much more to say besides that, but that's just the point I really want to home in here is it's unconstitutional. It goes against our freedom of speech. It goes against expressive language, through masks, through what we wear, through signage, and all that. It's against our freedom of expression. So it is unconstitutional. You don't need to hear from the people, even if the majority of them agree with the mask ordinance. It doesn't matter because at the end of the day, it infringes on our constitutional rights. And that's it. That's where I'm going to leave it.
Thank you. Are there any other further public comments? Okay, please.
I don't blame you for standing. Long meeting. Well, I would like to wish you all a happy Constitution Day. 238 years ago today, our Constitution was ratified. And even the most patriotic among you should have no problem admitting that our Constitution is far from perfect, especially at its time of first ratification. The First Amendment took us another 2 years to come into effect. Now, I don't make a habit of taking moral guidance from the Founding Fathers. They thought it was morally acceptable to own enslaved people. But nevertheless, I do find myself wondering what the Founding Fathers would think when they see what's happening in Modesto these days. Would they say it's just? Would you think of justice when you see an anti-First Amendment ordinance that was uncritically dictated to a prior city council by a prior police chief? Would you think of justice when MPD uses this ordinance to target minority groups and those with differing political opinions? Would you call it justice when MPD shows that bias in a manner that is not only unprofessional, but unconstitutional? Would you call it justice when the current council and the current chief exacerbate these stressors by failing to take meaningful action to protect the people of Modesto? Would you call it justice that the CPRB lacks the tools to actually provide meaningful oversight and accountability? I wouldn't call it justice. But that is the context in which we meet tonight. And frankly, I think the notion of conducting a survey on something that is so blatantly unjust is a slap in the face to the members of this community. There is a clear and present violation of our rights. Our rights are not up for debate. I'll say that again. Our rights are not up for debate. Why do we need a survey to tell us what we already know? If you want to conduct a survey for the sake of outreach and getting the CPRB out there, great, but don't tie it to this recommendation. The recommendation to review, and hopefully the council will eventually repeal this problematic ordinance, you could make that recommendation. You need to make that recommendation tonight. I spent years as one of the lead coordinators for Indivisible Stanislaus, and now I'm a member of CV BIPOC. I've been on both sides of this. And I can say, having been on both sides, the political discrimination by MPD against these two groups, from one compared to the other, is palpable. Well, we're treated much worse than they are, and it's not a coincidence. The city council sits on their hands and uses this body, the CPRB, as an excuse for their inaction. Now, I recognize that as a whole body, you only meet once a month and that you make recommendations. I understand you cannot change this policy by yourself, but you can remove the city's biggest excuse for their inaction, their cowardice. So please help us stop their stonewalling and use what little power they have provided you to force them to do their job. What better way to honor the 238th anniversary of the US Constitution than to take a stand for our right to peaceably assemble? Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comment? Okay, thank you. Not a problem at all.
Hi, my name is Ryan Hall. I'm an administrative manager for CalPride. I'm extremely thankful to be supported by fellow community activists and advocates here today. I'm proud to hear all of their statements, all of which I agree with and second. But I'm here today as another member of an organization that serves the same communities you do, to say that I'm embarrassed. It's embarrassing that it took 3 months, countless community members addressing their concerns at countless sitting meetings, and a threat of litigation to finally talk about it. The CPRB claims that they were building this report with community insight in mind, but building a report starts to look a lot like inactivity, passivity, incompetence, and corruption if it takes too long. Your comments about sitting and waiting and asking and taking steps are frankly not promising. I appreciate you providing your direction on the ordinance tonight, but I will not forget that law enforcement officials have already made their racist, discriminatory, and hostile direction clear. Mentioned further down in the agenda is one of your policy goals, improve relations between the community and the department. It's far too late to improve. The city and the department must take accountability for the irreparable harm they have caused in their inaction and ignorance. And listen, CalPride knows what accountability looks like. Like the CPRB, CalPride considers itself a liaison and a bridge. We believe that community safety starts with willing collaboration. But we train you, not the other way around, actually. One of the executive directors of CalPride, Catalina Zambrano, provides comprehensive training to crisis intervention teams and academy recruits. Some are receptive. Others refuse to respect marginalized identities even after receiving this mandatory training. They make a conscious choice, and that behavior cannot be ignored. Accountability is necessary to ensure that harmful patterns do not continue. The CPRB is here to do that, but you are failing to protect the communities we both serve by not urging the city to repeal the ordinance and investigate MPD. It's embarrassing. I also have a small note about dispersing a survey if you guys have to, again, only after the city immediately repeals the ordinance. Through CalPride, I personally have developed effective outreach methods with the state in partnership with the Office of Community Partnerships and Strategic Communications. It's a program called the Trusted Messenger Network. I gotta be frank with you guys, no one trusts you guys. If you guys have to perform surveys, which I understand that you guys might, I highly suggest that you adopt this approach of the Trusted Messenger Network. I have my card if you'd like to discuss more. Also, the stance on an objective or neutral survey to identify and evaluate the layered experiences of privilege, oppression, and systemic violence is just further hand waving. You guys are running out of time.
Thank you. Anyone else with the public comment? Okay.
Hey y'all, this is Giancarlo from CV BIPOC, and let me remind you that is Central Valley Black Indigenous People of Color Coalition. It's very important for later. So as the ad hoc committee had mentioned, that there are only 3 cities in California that have mass ordinances, and I'm pretty sure it's very obvious that out of the total 482 cities in California, those 479 that don't have them are perfectly fine and safe without them. Okay, and we know the reason why these mass ordinances do exist. Okay, and I love how that the ad hoc committee had mentioned that these do violate constitutional rights, and even state ones like the California Penal Code and due process, which mean these laws are vague. Okay, and they're vague for a reason, to interpret people's actions to justify enforcing laws against them. It also directly goes against the 14th Amendment for equal protection, because the protesters that passed in July were not treated equally. As we know, again, the protest created and ran by Central Valley Black, Indigenous, people of color, and those that were participating were the ones who had these laws harshly enforced against them compared to the No Kings rally. It's very obvious there. And we know exactly, again, why this is going on. We know why these ordinances do exist. It's why they exist in Georgia and Virginia, like y'all mentioned, how they still enforce anti-mask laws, is to suppress dissent and to discourage that type of dissent, okay? It's to spread fear for anybody who wants to kind of express their rights to freedom of speech. And this vague ordinance serves that exact same purpose, is not for public safety. There was no issue of public safety. Again, Central Valley CV BIPOC, we've had a track record of organizing and holding peaceful protests. Earlier this year, we had one, and then the year before, we had 2 or 3 major ones. We had masks, we had loudspeakers, we even had flagpoles, which people were also arrested for. Yet in those protests, nobody was arrested. So why are we picking and choosing what protests and when we are enforcing these laws? Okay. And that's the problem there. There is no need for a survey. We know what the right thing to do is. It's to repeal this because it is unconstitutional. It's not for public safety, okay? It is to spread fear, to suppress dissent, okay? It is to prevent people from basically practicing their First Amendment rights. And we all know that. It's obvious. So for those that are pushing to want to repeal this and have that recommendation, you are on the right side of the history. And those that are not, I don't know what the hell y'all are doing, okay? But it's unnecessary unless you want to repeal this, all right? Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Is there any further public comments? Okay, seeing none, oh. Gillespie.
Good evening, CPRB members. I want to begin by thanking the ad hoc committee, the subcommittee, I should say, for their effort and time in preparing this report. Collecting information and reviewing ordinances, policies, and procedures is serious work, and I appreciate any effort to engage in the issues that affect both public safety and civil liberties. That said, I must be very clear tonight. I am deeply concerned with the presentation that you just received. It lacks neutrality, balance, and sufficient research before offering proposals to the full board. When this board created the ad hoc subcommittee, it was asked to evaluate the ordinance, collect information, and make a recommendation. That process should have been thorough, impartial, and reflective of broad community input. Instead, what has been presented is largely a repetition or regurgitation of advocacy letters from the ACLU, NAACP, and other aligned groups. From what I understand, the recommendations offered tonight were developed from discussions amongst the ad hoc committee members and research on the internet, of which I would be curious to understand what those sources on the internet were. At the outset, and I believe many others, assumed that the committee would solicit meaningful input to gauge overall sentiment on this ordinance. That did not occur. While a draft survey was created, as has been mentioned, no scientifically valid or statistically reliable method of collecting community feedback was pursued, nor were perspectives sought from a wide cross-section of residents, business owners, faith leaders, victims' families, or others who may view this ordinance differently than the group of voices who regularly attend these meetings. Drawing conclusions about the entire will of our community from a set of like-minded advocacy groups is not only inaccurate, but it's misleading. I caution the board not to prioritize speed or appeasement of certain special interest groups over the more difficult but necessary work of gathering balanced, representative input. The credibility of this board depends on it. I think we all understand that community input is important, and that is why I, as the police chief, spend a lot of time listening and engaging with people from all walks of life in Modesto. If this board wants to assess community sentiment, it must mean all of our community, not just a fraction of it. Families who want to feel safe downtown, business owners worried about disorder, residents concerned about protests escalating into violence, those voices matter every bit as much as those represented in the advocacy letters. To ignore them in favor of a predetermined conclusion diminishes the integrity of this process. Members of the board, your legitimacy rests on your credibility to be fair, impartial, and thorough. When recommendations are one-sided, lack actual research and community input, or are driven by advocacy, your credibility is at risk. This board was created under the banner of Forward Together to bring our community a diverse perspectives into thoughtful, robust.
No,
discussions.
stop. We're not gonna do this, guys.
I'll finish my thoughts.
Thank you. You guys get extra time as well. He has respected you during, Steve, everyone has been respected during their time from the police chief. All we ask is the same respect for him. That's it. Without interruption, just like they gave you guys. You're still speaking. Stop speaking, please. Thank you. Thank you.
It's created under the banner Forward Together to bring our community's diverse perspectives into thoughtful, robust discussion about policing in Modesto, not to serve as a watchdog group or an advocacy arm for any special interest. I would have not supported it if that had been the intent. Its purpose is to provide balanced input on matters of community concern, and whether or not I agree or disagree with any given recommendation, I take your input seriously, and I value it because of the range of perspectives that help me make the best decisions for this department of the city. I'll close with, tonight I ask you to consider whether you truly have the correct, unbiased information you need to move forward with any recommendation at this time. The citizens of Modesto deserve nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. We're not gonna do that either, guys. Hey, Steve. All right, guys, we're gonna continue this meeting and we don't need to have any just.
Like, tell us to stop interrupting what?
I'd like to have a comment.
Okay.
So, to me, the problem-
One second, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna officially close public comments and we're gonna bring it back to the board for further comments.
for
You're welcome.
me, things like the survey and things like, that's opinions.
Brandon.
We're talking about law. So you're talking about opinions versus law. And the things that I read about the First Amendment and some of these violations are concerning. And so I don't care how many people you ask, it's really not about opinions. It's about, are we breaking the law or not? That's what I think has to take priority. So.
I'm not sure, what does that mean? When
Well, are we violating the First Amendment? Are we violating freedom of speech? All of those different civil liberties. Are we
And,
violating?
and those answers we cannot give because of our scope of work, and what we can do is recommend the city take a legal analysis on this. And of course, other things, but it's not our job to determine whether it is legal or not. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is, guys, like flat out, okay? I don't know if you were finished with your, or you had something, Nancy?
Well, I think my inclination would be to make a recommendation to the city, through the city city manager, to.
Before any recommendations, let's just make sure the board members have a
Okay.
time to speak to.
All right.
Sorry. Just if there's any other board members that would like to speak on this, have any comments, concerns about anything we've talked about tonight regarding this agenda item?
I'm interested in hearing the rest of your thought, actually. It wasn't a direct recommendation, it was your thought about a recommendation.
Yeah, I think that we should go ahead and recommend to the city manager, or communicate to the city manager that our recommendation is that subdivision 13 of the ordinance be repealed. And, I guess my inclination is to agree that a survey isn't needed. So that's my thoughts on it.
Any other board members have any comments? Frank?
I'm interested in hearing more from others before I speak.
Okay. Is there anyone else? Okay, no, I mean, you have the floor, yeah.
Okay. Well, due respect to those who think they know the law, it's pretty well established that freedom of speech is a primary constitutionally protected right that each and every American has. And it's definitely Anybody proposing a ordinance in a city council level has to take serious consideration of it. I've had a number of conversations with attorneys, and we've heard from attorneys here tonight. I know I have pretty good authorities that have told me that this is illegal, but we can't make that decision from here. We are only here to recommend a policy, and then we'll let the city's attorneys manage the actual legal, their legal evaluation. And then ultimately, depending on how they determine, there will be a court that sounds, according to the ACLU, there'll be a court that will make the final decision. But we're only going to make a policy proposal. And to that extent, I don't know that the surveys are significant. The city survey only goes to identified select few, so we're not really getting a complete city a survey of everyone who's interested in this. In fact, many of us will probably be left out of that survey. If we were to do a survey, I'm not sure if we have a budget assigned to us that we can do something like that. I don't know how much time it would take. And I'm not sure if it's indicative, depending on what the law is going to ultimately determine anyway. So I, like Nancy, would propose that we push the policy forward to the city manager of repealing the measure. And I also think we shouldn't wait for any surveys. That's just, you've heard the citizens who do show up here are very engaged. The police chief mentioned other people that aren't here and their concerns, but they're not here, right? So, but there are business leaders or people who have concerns. All I can say is that for 3 months, we have heard an awful lot from a lot of people, not just the people sitting here in this room. I've had this conversation with neighbors, and all kinds of people have reached out to me. So it's not just, and many of them are business owners, by the way. Anyway, I see this as an issue of your safety and the safety of your members, as well as the safety of the community. I don't think the physical engagement with people on a misdemeanor like that is a healthy, trust developing exercise. And I also think it can escalate. It just seemed like it just entirely escalates things that don't need to be. At the most, maybe a ticket, but I can't imagine arresting anyone for walking down the street with a mask. That's just, you're supposing that they're going to be bad actors, which is what the state actually says. You have to be in the commission of a crime. You can't just look at a person and say that, well, that's going to be one of those people. So anyway, I also know that what we make the decision here tonight doesn't just affect CV BIPOC. It can also be a total spectrum of people and protesters from across the spectrum. There were Proud Boys. I think that was the one of the groups that prompted this whole thing in 2020. And I'm willing to say to both sides, that's your right. Wear a mask. That's personally my opinion. I'm going to leave it there.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
I actually would like to add to the idea of coordinating with the police department and having your organizers meet with them. I want that to the same thing applies. I would like the far right, far middle, far left, whatever the group is, they should all, I think it's just a matter of for civic safety that we meet with the police chief or whoever he designates for these events in the future. But I also do think we need to move this forward and not wait for another month.
Thank you. Trish?
I'm sitting here, go ahead, Ken. I'm still thinking.
I'm going to be unpopular here, but that's comes along with the territory. We've heard repeatedly from the folks that are gathered here tonight and at previous meetings, and I respect your opinions. I think you have valid points, but I think there's an entire community out there that deserves to be heard. And the fact that they don't show up here doesn't really mean anything to me. I think their viewpoints and their input is just as valid. And I think we need to have some sort of comprehensive professional method of gauging that sentiment. And so I'm in favor of doing this survey before we take any formal action and recommending anything to the city manager's office. And like I said, I know I'm going to be unpopular, but I think it's important.
Thank you, Ken.
One of the individuals that spoke earlier made a reference to lifting the ordinance versus repealing the ordinance. And I feel like a way to try and meet in the middle in this urgent environment that we are discussing here tonight, that it might be reasonable for us to consider a recommendation to city manager to lift the ordinance in this point in time until we can come back with what we need to encourage further action on either side. So I lay that out asking for, I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but asking for kind of consensus on that as a consideration, as a way to move the needle forward and not be absolute at this time, as we have mixed feelings about engaging the rest of the community. I feel one of the most important valuable statements that came from your report was in your conclusion, in the statement that the relationship between law enforcement and the community is reciprocal. And I think that has to be an expectation from everyone to work together one way or another. But in this moment, doing something to help tone down the fear and the passion to keep everyone safe on all sides is a way to at least offer a step.
Thank you. Brett?
Yeah, while I understand what you're saying, I don't see the research that I've done and the vast opinions I've been talking is going to change my feeling that because we're not revealing the mask ordinance, period, we're saying it doesn't stand alone as a misdemeanor that gives, a violation of wearing a mask. If someone wears a mask, fine. But when that person engages in the litany of list of other things, the mask's a problem. And no, you can't violate the law while wearing a mask. So I don't see this as I don't see us ending up anywhere other than this, because we aren't taking the whole ordinance and throwing it out. We're just saying when it comes to wearing a mask alone, does that give you, is that a violation of our ordinance? And so I feel really comfortable saying that we aren't taking the teeth out of the ordinance by doing that. We're basically saying just on its own, that doesn't give anyone the right to go out and do anything else. And it's clear in our ordinance, it's clear in the state law that that's the case. And it never gives wearing a mask carte blanche if you're going to go to that next level of things. So I really don't see more people. The survey would be good. I would like to do the survey just to get more information, but on that particular item, I don't see me changing my opinion about this.
Okay. After,
Is there an action you're comfortable taking, recommending right now, Brad?
Yeah, I would.
I have about 3 of them listed down. If
What?
I have about 3 motions that we could possibly make.
I have one that I can make.
All right, cool. Let's go ahead.
moved recommend the city manager to remove Modesto Municipal Code 4-23.02 subsection 13 only, which is the mask ordinance that is a standalone violation of the municipal code. And to, take that in consideration, and he goes to the city council or whatever with it.
I'll second.
So we understand his motion, correct, everyone? There's no clarifying questions? We just gotta make sure it's clear.
Yeah, so it's to, the recommendation is for the city manager to recommend removing
Subsection 13,
42302, it's A13.
813, correct.
The recommendation, the motion is to convey to the city manager that it's the board's
Opinion,
recommendation that section 13 of 402.
813, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
And some clarifying question on that motion. Is there a way that we can tie in lifting A13 until there is like a legal analysis for the city and let them figure it out, but
I don't think there's a need since there's a motion.
repeal of it completely? Okay,
Motion was
I'm
made
just-
to make the recommendation to repeal.
Okay, so we already had a motion, we've had a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Please
Okay,
call
let's just start with the calling the roll. Simi, if you don't mind, just calling the roll for us.
Just call the name tags.
Member Beasley Day?
I think she just walked into the room. Do you mind repeating the motion so she hears it?
It's a recommendation from the board to the city manager to repeal municipal code section 4-23.02 A13.
I'm gonna say aye or not.
We're sure that that's the section that
Yes.
isolates. Okay.
Yeah.
it's the recommendation to this, say it again, John, it just didn't say.
Recommendation from the board to the city manager to repeal,
That the city repeal
that the city repeal
4-23.02 subdivision 13.
A13. It's A13 to be
A13,
specific,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we're on to roll call, sorry.
Member Beasley Day? Member Bryant?
Oh, yes or no on the motion? Yes.
Member Bryant?
No.
Member Byrd?
Yes.
Member Christensen?
Yes.
Member Demrell?
Yes.
Member Grant is absent. Member Smith?
Yes.
Member Han?
Yes.
Chairman Solorio?
Yes. The motion passes 7-1 with one absent. After listening to further comments as well, I just want to entertain this. So let's just entertain it and see where it goes. I would like to make another motion that the CPRB make a recommendation to the city manager to review 4-23.02 in its entirety for any possible First Amendment violations. That's where they can do their legal analysis. Our recommendation is to tell the city manager to do a full review, a legal analysis of 4-23.02 in its entirety, not just A13. So this one includes all the rest of those restrictions.
Can we add on to that in regards to state and federal laws?
Well, this is more of a, I mean, yeah, to coincide with State Penal Code 185, but it's a legal analysis review of the entire ordinance.
So you're talking about like sign thickness, wearing a helmet, wearing.
Everything, yeah.
But that was already done when the legal analysis was done. There's nothing, it's,
We're asking for a updated.
But you can make that recommendation, but the city attorney's office can't provide the results because we have attorney-client privilege.
Right.
So our duty of confidentiality applies to the city. So
But do we get, say we move this forward, are you able to tell us city manager said, yes, they will look into it, or city manager denies that recommendation? Just so that we can be aware and know.
I can tell you that we've looked at it.
Okay.
Don't feel as compelled for that.
Okay, it was just a something to think about. There's no second. If there's no second, there's no vote. But that was something I wanted to bring up. Another thing I heard tonight, so another motion I'm willing to bring forward on the table. A recommendation that the city manager investigates and does a legal analysis on possible police misconduct for the June 14th protest, including a review of police policies 412 and procedure 466, and how the police department responded to the protests on that day. A motion to recommend the city manager to investigate the June 14th protest and any possible misconduct from the police department, including a review of their policies and procedures, 412 and 466. This? No, this is directly to city manager. Just the.
I'd need to know more about what was done. I know the police had internal investigations. This might have been done already.
Yeah, this is just based off of public comments and a presentation given by the police review board. I mean, the police. Yeah, if there's no second, then there's nothing to be moved on here, but.
Yeah, so the agenda item for tonight is the ordinance itself, so this actually goes outside the.
Last meeting, we had conversation and presentation on protest, so I feel like it's not necessarily connected to the mask thing, but it was a topic that we brought forward, and.
I understand, but.
There's no
board-
Yeah, there's no
second.
second.
So there's no reason.
I want to second that because I think that when we're talking about building trust, we're looking at accountability. We're also looking at transparency. And so just because you look into something or you investigate something, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to find a lot of things wrong. But in order to show that we really are about transparency or
Accountability.
what's the harm in looking into it?
Brown Act doesn't allow you to take action on items that haven't been agendized. So
And I understand that point. I think that difference would be under new business, it's not one of the items listed. So if you wanted it to be brought as a topic in the future is where a discussion would be made about getting.
But we had the presentation, that's my point, is that we had the presentation on the topic of protest from the police department. But I understand what you're saying, it's not agendized tonight.
Yeah.
So you're saying we can't make a recommendation on it tonight. Okay, my apologies. I understand now, so I guess it will have to be something further, but as Wendy said, it just coincides with our main goals of, police accountability, alternative response models, and policies and practices. But yeah, we can bring it up for a future topic. So tonight, that's what I have. I don't know if there's anyone else that has any other.
I actually would be willing to put a motion forward that we take advantage of the invitation we've had from city to include 3 questions in their survey. We lose nothing by taking advantage of that opportunity And maybe we consider using the response we get on those questions to validate whether or not it would make sense for us to do our own further one. But at least get 3 in there. We're not having to pay anything. Why not take advantage of at least a test market?
That agenda, is that okay? Is that agenda?
That's something we can do tonight, right? Because that's part of the conversation.
Yeah, that was part of the discussion.
I'll second that.
Do you need a clarifying motion?
Yeah, can you restate that?
I make a motion that we take advantage of inserting however many questions allotted to us in the citywide survey to go out in the next 2 weeks.
Brad second.
I said,
Brad already second.
On the 4-2302A13 in particular, or
4-22.0, 4-23.02 in its
is that what
entirety.
the survey was that you guys were building was sold?
The survey that we were building was mass alone.
Which part was included in the conversation?
And then with the city, the conversation, we didn't go into what the
What?
questions would even look like or anything like that. The city and Problowski went into that conversation together. So I'm not sure what.
So as staff, I just say that it was pertaining to what was contained within the presentation that you all saw tonight. So that's the questions that were, and the discussion around partnering with the city.
About the mask, Scotty?
Correct, subsection 13.
And the,
Then, I'm not sure it's needed then. We're already.
I mean, they could use it in further deliberation, the city council, on the data that they receive in that survey. So, I think it's worth it.
That's a good point. I'll stand on it.
And we have a second. Can we get a roll call?
Can I make a comment
Oh.
first?
I apologize.
I have a question for staff. Scotty, do you know how many questions are going to be asked, or is that up to negotiation between your office and a consultant that's going to do this work?
That hasn't been determined, but I mean, in knowing what our survey contains and the number of questions and all of that, it's probably going to be about 2 or 3.
Okay.
I'm just going to tell you.
Okay, roll call.
Member Beasley Day,
Yes.
Member Bryant,
Aye.
Member Byrd,
Yes.
Member Christensen,
Yes.
Member Demrell,
Yes.
Member Grant is absent. Member Smith,
Yes.
Member Han,
Yes.
Chairman Solorio.
Yes. Motion passes 8-0. Okay, thank you guys. We will be moving on now. On to staff comments and reports. Stephen, are you still with us? We have an update on the independent police auditor.
Good
Good to see
evening,
you,
everybody.
Stephen.
I absolutely am still with you, Chair Solorio, and thank you for letting me dip in for just a moment here. I've obviously been following the evening's events very closely, and I appreciate the robust discussion. I do not have a substantive report from the Independent Police Auditor Office tonight based on the cycle of activities that we pursue as part of our role in Modesto. But just based on the conversation tonight, I just want to offer the board and the public a very quick reminder that certainly one of the meat and potatoes of our function is to conduct an independent assessment, an independent evaluation of any of the internal processes that the department has with regard to complaints of officer misconduct, critical incidents, uses of force, etc. And my understanding, I know the topic du jour is June 14th and the ordinance, and there's been a lot of talk about the ordinance. With regard to June 14th, my understanding is that there are pending investigations that the department has initiated, and that would fall under the umbrella of the work that my office does and publicly reports out on. So I just wanted to provide that reminder to everybody. And we'll certainly be interested in tracking the further progress of these issues in the coming weeks and months. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for that update. On to staff comments and reports. Scotty, at this time, no comments from staff. On to the next item, board comments and reports. Policy goal number 8, review use of force policy to minimize likelihood of death resulting from use of force. Is there any update?
Yes, we did meet and we have, based on suggestions that were made at a prior meeting, our committee is going to try to arrange a meeting with MPD to consider some issues and questions that we had that we wanted to run by MPD first. And I talked to Lieutenant Kleiber about that this afternoon earlier. And I'm going to be in touch with MPD to try to set up a meeting with our committee and a representative of the department by the second week in October.
Thank you for that update. Policy goal number 1, improve relations between the community and the department. Is there an update on that?
No, again, carrying forward, allowing time to get through annual report and the subcommittee time that Latricia has so willingly given. I've waited. I anticipate we will hold a meeting within the next 3 weeks or so.
Thank you. Policy goal number 3, reduce youth arrest, particularly among Latino youth. Do we have an update on that?
No report. We've been busy working with this.
And are there any board comments or reports at this time? Board members may make a brief announcement or report briefly on his or her activities. No? Okay, seeing none. On to future agenda items. In the future, we will be talking about Brown Act training, and we'll also be bringing up the CPRB calendar update. Scotty, did you want to speak on that a little?
Yes, thank you. So that'll be just discussing topics to the end of the year and probably through January, just like we did last year. And then in January, we'll also be bringing the same topic back to really kind of talk through this next year in 2026. Understanding that we probably won't fill up the whole calendar, but providing topics for consideration.
And this is at the next meeting, will we have both of these items, or that's to be discussed further?
Yeah, right now it's anticipated that would be the case unless something else comes up. And again, it's that other one is just to talk about topics for the next, the meetings until the end of this calendar year.
Perfect. All right. And finally, the meeting is adjourned. Our next meeting is October 15th, 2025. Thank you.